fruit of the Ashok Leyland and Nissan joint venture is ready for the picking. Before the launch, as usual, CNB is scooping the Dost. Yep, this friendly neighborhood pickup cum mini truck is ready to go, and we believe it will impact its segment. And besides, Siddharth is getting his kicks getting to drive it.
Right, so it's a pretty neat exclusive yet again from CNB, and one that's very different because obviously we don't talk about vehicles like this very often. Having said that, we have featured vehicles from this segment on the program before, but yet, to be fair, since these are not the kind of cars that I'm used to driving, I want to get a little bit of perspective before I get into what's special and new and different about the Dost, and which is why we decided to bring in some of the other vehicles that operate in this segment. And so as you can see, we've got a nice wide spread of them right here. So before I get into the Dost itself and start driving it, let me try and figure out just what the competition is offering. No doubt about it, the big competition comes from Mahindra and Tata, and then of course when you think about this segment, the Chota Hathi has been the dominant force. So I'm going to start with the Tata Ace. Alright, on to the next one. Now the Maximo from Mahindra of course was an attempt to try and better the Ace, and of course we have seen significant volume build up from Mahindra on this vehicle as well. Let's get this one out on the road too, and I have to quickly make a point here that we are not doing a full-on shootout here. So these aren't brand new vehicles, they have been on the road for some time now, and so it's not an apples to apples comparison in that sense. The idea is for me to just get some perspective, like I said. Now the third ride of course is the pickup version of the Bolero, and what we've done is also got enough payload going in terms of maximum capacity on all these vehicles. We'll run you through that. It's of course varying on the different vehicles that we have here with us.
Okay, now we're ready to meet our new Dost.
Ashok Leyland has its own full-fledged design studio, and so the idea was to say that look, since these guys are developing a design language for the brand, along with the big trucks and the buses, even the smaller ones like these should also now start to bring some of that design language in. So there are certain cues here which you'll see in the big trucks like the U trucks, for example. This deep chin that comes down here without any element of grille, so a flat face, and this line which dips down U-shaped, that's going to be a signature sort of a style statement, if you will, on Ashok Leyland. The other thing is that, you know, they got a lot of driver feedback from this segment, and most drivers said that there's a sense of unease that they have with a flat face. They feel that from a safety point of view, it may be a bit of a compromise when it comes to frontal collisions. So a bit of a snout was intentionally added to the Dosts then, more from that perception point of view than from actual structural safety. Now, most of the European pickups in this LCV space have this sort of a snout. Most of the Japanese ones have flat faces, so really it was just one way or the other to go, though the overall styling does look a little bit more Japanese, doesn't it? Now the shut lines, also the overall integration of them is a lot better here. You do see a little bit of refinement that comes through compared to what else is in the space, and the same line comes down here. It sort of forms the separation between the indicator and the headlamp. That's nice too. The indicator itself is hockey stick shaped, and so that's going to again be a signature of the Dost, and that's again intentionally been thrown in there, and you start to see that in certain other elements as well. Come, I'll show you what I'm talking about, because just like you saw that wrap around the headlamp, you also see the same sort of a element here in the overall design of the rear view mirror, and you're seeing a certain amount of surfacing on the metal as well that helps throw around a little bit of light, creates a little bit of a refined, grown-up look, if you will, on the overall vehicle. You're also seeing the same sort of a shape and element here on the steering column. You have that same design element that's been thrown in. It also comes through on the way the dash has been laid out. So it's nice to see that there's a bit of a complementing of the styling language on the inside and outside. And the reason I've dropped the seats down is to give you what is a bench of sorts. Now in big trucks you have that bench behind the seats where the driver can sleep and relax when he's off duty. Here, they've tried to create a similar sort of an appeal, and so you drop the seats down and you get a somewhat of a bench so the guy can take a nap, and cuts down on driver fatigue. Now, of course, there was an apparent structural integrity improvement in each of those vehicles as I drove them, and it was progressive. So, which is why, seeing that kind of a development cycle in the segment, the Dost has to now counter and improve on some of the bad points, as well as some of the areas that have been seen as USPs for those vehicles. So, first off, the first impression, after we've of course shown you the way the vehicle looks, now that I've had a chance to get into some of the others, is just the sheer size of this door, which implies to me that the cabin is going to be a little bit more spacious. Is it? I'll tell you in a second. The second point, the rear of the vehicle, the actual payload carrying area is definitely looking bigger, and guess what? It is. It's 1250 kgs. On the Bolero, it's 1150. On the Ace, it's 750, and on the Maximo, it's 850 kgs. So you can see that this immediately has a higher carrying capacity. And remember, in this segment, a lot of drivers do tend to overload, so you can add a little bit to that in any case in terms of capability. All right, now the cabin. First impression, you can look at it, even visually, it is definitely looking a little bit more comfortable and spacious. And from the point of view of the kind of drivers who have to operate for hours on end in these vehicles, I would say that's a big plus. Second point is the seating position itself. It's a lot more upright in some of the other vehicles, or there isn't enough of a well for your feet in vehicles like the Bolero. Here I'm getting the sense of a little bit more car-like comfort, which again, from a first impression point of view, is terrific.
The engine in the Dost is all new and developed by the joint venture. The idea was not to simply pick bits and pieces from Nissan's existing global LCV portfolio, and so the Dost, as well as future products from this JV, will be made from scratch.
Driving a vehicle in this segment means that I have to get rid of my passenger car hat and get into LCV mode. So I have done that, and that means you of course take a few things for granted, like the extra engine noise, a little bit of vibration, and the huge steering wheel as well. That's truck-like. Now, having said that, that's where I find that there are specific areas where Ashok Leyland and Nissan have worked on to try and make this vehicle a little bit better than some of the others that I drove. So I'm glad I drove them first, because you get a sense of that almost instantly. Within just a few kilometers, I know now that the engine response is definitely a lot better. It means that even with a full payload, and we're doing our review with the full payload today, so that you don't get a sense of an empty vehicle taking off quicker. Takeoff from start, from stop to go is a lot better. You get a better sense when you're climbing slopes as well, and not frequent downshifting that's required on some of the other vehicles. The 5-speed AvTech gearbox, which is the same one that goes into the Tavera, is definitely a lot more ample too. So overall, it's a more satisfying driving experience, one that's easier and more comfortable as well. And the cabin definitely adds to the experience, because you've got seats that are more comfortable, they recline, and you've got more ergonomically designed plastics which are of better quality and colors. And yes, the top end variant has an AC.
We are excited about the Dost because we believe if priced well, it will also shake up its segment. The pricing is expected to stay somewhere between the Ace and the Bolero pickup, despite the Dost having superior driving, better build quality, and yes, higher payload capacity too. There will be an Innova competitor coming from this stable too, and so watch out for more from Ashok Leyland Nissan on CNB soon.